I'm going to go ahead and start so that we get everything done right here and as much as possible. I will call to order the Personnel Policy Curriculum Committee meeting, which was duly noticed on March 28th, 2024, through posting and notification of press in accordance with Wisconsin 19.84. Notice is hereby given that school board members who are not members of this committee may attend this meeting so as to constitute a quorum of the Board of Education. Any such board member attendance will be for information gathering only and will not result in direct decision-making by the Board of Education at the committee meeting. Safety message. So I looked it up. This is, April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Who knew? Distracted driving has become a deadly epidemic on our roads, primarily due to cell phones. Specifically texting, talking, social media use has become the most common distraction. Other risky actions include adjusting the radio or GPS, applying makeup, eating and drinking, and by driving distracted, you're robbing yourself of seconds that you may need to avoid a crash or a close call. So, distracted driving in 2021 killed 3,522 people. And April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. It's a good time to regroup and take responsibility for the choices we make when we're on the road. So these safety tips are here for a safe ride. So you need to send a text, pull over and park your car in a safe location. Designate your passenger as your designated texter to respond to calls or messages. Do not scroll through apps while driving. And if you struggle with this, put the cell phone in your trunk or your glove box or the back seat of your car until you arrive at your destination. So,
Thank you.
there you go. Okay, could I have a motion to adopt the April 1st, 2024 agenda as presented?
Sure.
Second.
Okay, that was Commissioner Murray and then Commissioner Herda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. All right, first on our agenda is Carrie with District McKinney-Vento and Homeless Youth presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I always keep my phone in the back seat.
Thank you.
Testing, we're good? Okay. All right, well, thank you for having me tonight. Seems like it's always raining, and I have to present with wet shoes every time I come here, so here we are. I've been in this position for 10 years now, McKinney-Vento Families in Transition Coordinator. Traditionally, it's called Homeless Liaison, but I didn't like the word homeless, so I call myself Families in Transition. Because when you work with families, a lot of them don't think they're homeless. Or when you say homeless, they may get defensive. So I always say, you're in between places, you're transitioning. So that's what I named myself. And as you might have known, we're going to go through the brochure, and then I'm going to do just some numbers. And there's brochures for for audience members if you want to follow along. And then talk a little bit about some of the district roles. So as you know, McKinney-Vento is a federal law adopted in 1987. Basically, the law says that school districts have to identify students experiencing homelessness. They have to have someone in my position, and they have to remove all barriers for students experiencing homelessness. So that law was adopted in 1987. So as of today, I have 514 students identified as McKinney-Vento in Janesville. That's today. So who qualifies as McKinney-Vento? Well, if you follow along with the brochure, we have, out of the 514 students identified, 4% are living in shelters currently. That could be the House of Mercy, the YWCA Domestic Violence Shelter, Project 1649, and then there's some transitional living programs around Janesville. Community Action has some apartments in Janesville. The YWCA Dodge Street apartments are considered transitional living, and they are considered McKinney-Vento because the families, although they're in an apartment, they're not paying rent. Somebody else is paying rent. So that's why they would fall under McKinney-Vento. 9% of our students are living in motels right now. Motel 6, I don't know how many school buses I send out to Motel 6, at least 3 or 4 every day, that take students to and from school. And you might have heard about a month ago, there was that landlord who displaced over 100 residents. And I was able to work with ECHO to do a memorandum of understanding to use some of my ESSER funds to put those families in motels for a month. So right now I have 6 of those families out at Motel 6 that were displaced. And that was a month's stay, and that was up. So this week I'm trying to find them, check in with them, see if they need another month, if they found permanent housing. We have students in Lannonstone. I've had students in motels in Whitewater, Lake Geneva, Fort Atkinson. If there's no more motels in Janesville, then we look for motels outside of Janesville, Beloit. So that's 9%. 82% of our families are sharing housing or living with other families. That's because of lack of housing. So this would be families doubled up because they don't have a place to go. It would not be, mom and dad moved to Florida and they want their son to finish out Craig High School, so you're gonna stay with a friend. That would not be McKinney-Vento. These are families doubled up because of loss of housing. 4% are living in their car. And then we have 36 unaccompanied youth right now. These are 6%. These are teenagers just kind of couch surfing on their own. Child of a migrant worker. In the 10 years I've been doing this position, I maybe had 2. So not very often. And then any other situation that is not fixed, regular, or adequate for nighttime resident. The key word there is adequate. So I have families that are in homes, but they're not adequate. They don't have heat, they don't have water. I had a student at Rock River Charter School, his family was living in a trailer, they had holes in the wall. That's not adequate. So I was able to identify them as McKinney-Vento because it just wasn't adequate. It's a long story, but I ended up working with the Parker Builders Club, where they were able to go to that trailer and fix the walls for that student. Any questions on who qualifies? No? All right, so the students that qualify have certain rights. Number 1 is students get immediate enrollment. So if they're new to town and they don't have their birth certificate, they don't have their immunization records, we need to enroll them. I work very closely with the new student enrollment office, train their staff. If I know there's a family that has contacted me that's going to enroll, I kind of call them and give them a heads up, just so they know so-and-so is McKinney-Vento, so don't ask them for their stuff because they probably don't have it. I meet families in the new student enrollment office if needed, and if they can't get to the new student enrollment office, I take paperwork to them. So I take paperwork to shelters, I take enrollment paperwork to YWCA, all of those places. So we get them enrolled. Hello. And then school choice. So right now I have 113 students that live outside of the Janesville School District. 113. Yep, 113 live outside of the Janesville School District. Many of them live in Beloit. A few scattered. There's a homeless shelter on Highway 14, so some of those students live in the Delavan Darien. But basically we want students to stay in their school of origin. So you have a student that's been going to Wilson for the last 4 years and they become displaced, and maybe they're in Beloit staying with a grandma because of lack of housing. We want them to stay at Wilson. that's where their friends are, that's where their teachers are, and I'll get them there. I will get them there through transportation, so. So as their lives are so chaotic and they don't know what to expect, school is one thing that they can count on, that is consistent, so. Free lunches, so as soon as a student is identified, I work with Megan in nutrition, and we try to get free lunches started the very same day. We waive school fees. I work with Kathy in the business office, and we try to get fees waived as soon as we can, so they don't have to pay any fees. There's some fees that can't be waived through the school district, so I have a donation fund. So this is a fund that only I can access, where I can pay for things that come up during the school year. So this spring, it'll be a lot of field trips for kids. I think I have over 100 middle school kids that probably want to go to Noah's Ark or wherever they go, and they can't afford to go, so I tap into that donation fund and cover those field trips for them. I had a girl at Craig who wanted to be in Spotlighters. She was experiencing McKinney-Vento. That's a lot of money to be in Spotlighters, so I paid for that out of my donation fund. I had a couple boys at the YWCA who wanted to play football at Parker, so I paid for their sports physicals out of my donation fund. So when people say, what can I do to help? I always say, well, I have this donation fund that you could donate to, and then I can use the money as it comes up, as things come up during the year. So, which, the Optimists helped me out with that a couple weeks ago, so thank you. And then transportation. If a student lives 1.5 miles from their school of origin, they qualify for transportation. For elementary kids, I set up a school bus. I work with Van Gelder. If they have a vehicle, usually a gas card. And then for those 113 students that live outside of Janesville, we have private drivers that are district employees. So I work with Chris Winchell, and we try to set up transportation for them. So, any question on, yeah, Kathy?
You mentioned the donation fund.
Yeah.
Is there a link somewhere to that, or do people just send a check to the district and, designate it for, the McKinney-Vento
Yeah.
project? Is that what
Yeah,
they
I
do?
haven't, I mean, I'm a frequent speaker like at Rotary, Optimist, places like that, and they usually donate money to me, and then I put that in the donation fund.
Okay.
I haven't really advertised a whole lot. If there's an article in the paper about homelessness, I'll get a lot of phone calls, what can I do to help? Then I might say, well, we have a donation fund. So, but I don't advertise it,
Okay, thanks.
so, yep. Lisa?
You said there was 514 homeless as of today. What, is that trending upward? Is it trending down versus past years?
It's up.
Okay.
It's probably up 100 from last year at this time.
Do you know what the rationale or reasons for
There's
that? I'm
really
sure there's a variety of factors.
There's really no low-income housing in Janesville.
Okay.
There's no housing. I have families at work that have vouchers that want to find a place, they can't find one. Yeah. Yes.
I'm just thinking about how so much has changed in our district since before GM closed. So much changed. What's the data that you maybe are aware of about our homelessness numbers previous to that compared to now? Because we see the difference in free and reduced lunch and all of that. Is that something that you've paid attention to at all, or?
Yeah, I also write a lot of grants, so I have a lot of statistics, and it's probably 242 maybe back then. And now lately we've been up 400, 500, over 500 now.
So it's obviously more than
Yes,
doubled.
yep. I have all those numbers if you ever want to see them. I keep great numbers.
And then one other thing, along with Commissioner Herta's question, do you have a Venmo account? That would be something, you know how you handle money and district funding and
Yeah.
all of that can be tricky. if that ever is something that could work, I feel like so many people send money via Venmo these
Right.
days that I don't know if that would be helpful, but just as my thinking about it, man, that if it's a helpful tool to get people to donate because sometimes people will donate if
Oh,
they
yeah.
can
Yeah.
immediately, but if
No,
they have
I
to think
use
about
it.
it too long,
Yeah,
but it
I
might.
use- Yeah, I don't know, that would be something to look into. We do have the Perposity app for the district where people could go in and purchase items for students, and I keep that app, I'm the administrator for that. So, which I think we had over 500 needs met since it started. So that's huge. Kevin?
Why don't you tell us about the agreement we have with the city and the busing?
Thank you. That has made my life so much easier, where students can ride the bus for free, because in the past, we would have to get bus tokens or bus passes for all those McKinney-Vento middle and high school students, so, yeah, that has been a godsend. And they can use it anytime to get to work or whatever they need, so I appreciate that so much.
Does
Yeah.
that continue over the summer, or is it just a school year?
Summer.
Year, okay.
Yep.
That's fantastic. And I also think about this as I know there are individuals who have homes, but obviously extreme poverty impacts their ability to transport children to school. So, it starts to make me wonder how some of the services that are already available to individuals through your programming could be expanded, not at all to take funding away from your very deserving
Right.
students and families that need that support, but how we could expand those already existing services for transportation to the families who really do struggle because of lack of motor vehicles or other resources, but really want their kids in school, but they do have a home.
And we have a program called Tokens for Teens
Okay.
that does that. And that is a program that runs during the cold months where students usually walk or ride their bike. I can get donated gas cards, and they work through the social worker in the school, and then they submit a request form to me, and then I can get them gas cards. But right now, that's just during the cold winter months. And that was started years ago through a truancy committee.
Okay.
Yep. So we have district roles. I don't know how much time I have left. Okay. So basically it's me. I'm the Families in Transition Coordinator. So I'm kind of the big picture of the program. So I coordinate the program. I'm involved in the community. I'm on a lot of community committees. Project 1649, the Homeless Intervention Task Force. We have a youth subcommittee of the Homeless Intervention Task Force. We have a youth advisory board with kids that were homeless that advise us, on what will actually work, because we're like, oh yeah, we should do this. They're like, that ain't gonna work. So, very involved in the community, and that's a part of my job that I love. Today, I think, was FAFSA Day. I worked with a lot of unaccompanied youth today to write letters for colleges to verify that they were McKinney-Ventos, so they didn't have to submit all of the paperwork. I think I wrote at least 5 letters today. I coordinate the program. About a month ago, we had a DPI compliance review. We passed. We passed, but that's quite a process, a 2-hour phone call and 15-page report, and so I get to do all that kind of fun stuff for the district. And then I write and manage grants, so I have a DPI grant. I wrote a grant for the Homeless Intervention Task Force. I write grants for Project 1649, so beyond Janesville School District, but part of that community collaboration. So I develop procedures. I think I have a 20-page procedure document just on our procedures. So if someone new, like a new social worker, comes into the district, I can sit down with them, give them the handbook, go through it, and train them. So that's important, because when I started, I said, well, where's the handbook? Well, we don't have one. I'm like, well, I need to make one. So I did that. I train smaller districts. I've trained the Clinton School District, Evansville School District, and right now I'm mentoring a social worker in the Columbus School District, just on McKinney-Vento. I'm the keeper of the data. I do all the Infinite Campus data and look at that data and see where we need to focus our efforts through grant writing. I present at state and national workshops, usually on transportation, because they love our private drivers. They want to know how we do that. And then on community collaboration. They want, DPI always gives them my name as someone to contact about community collaboration, because we do so much. And then I work with UW Whitewater. I talk to all their social work classes. I was just out at UROC a couple weeks ago, UW Whitewater, Rock County, to talk to their social work classes. So think big picture, that's me. And then we have the building level advocates, that's usually the social worker in the building. So they work on identification of the families. They submit paperwork to me. I set up the services. Then they communicate with the families and get them the services. I work with ECHO to do a weekend food bag for our homeless families. And then the building advocate gets the food to the families. So I'm big picture, they're giving it to the families. They have the relationship with the families. I write the grants to have the clothing closets in the schools. They manage the closets. So, and then through a DPI 3-year grant, I was able to hire a bilingual McKinney-Vento immigrant support person for the last 3 years. Valerie, she's here, and she works with our Spanish-speaking homeless families. And right now I have 136 Spanish-speaking McKinney-Vento students. So that was a huge barrier. A lot of the social worker says, Carrie, we can't communicate with the families. We're doing the best we can. We have our EL teachers. I said, well, I'll get you help. So I wrote the grant, and we got Valerie for the next 3 years. And she has been phenomenal, phenomenal. The social worker said to me, Carrie, I learned so much by this family just from Valerie, from talking from them for 10 minutes on the phone than I did like in 6 months. So it's huge. And then we have a McKinney-Vento shelter tutor. So I have a teacher at Craig that I pay, and she tutors students at the House of Mercy, the YWCA, and then I was able to buy curriculum through money for her to use. And it's curriculum that we already use, so the kids know it. So this is what we have to do for McKinney-Vento. Janesville, we do so much more than's required. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support. And I love my job. I don't have a job. I get paid to help people. That's what I tell people all the time. I say, I don't have a job. I get paid to help. So.
Hello, everybody. I'm meteorologist Jacob Francis.
Any questions?
The meteorologists say back there, Patrick.
Carrie, maybe you already talked about this. I apologize for my lateness. I was delayed with a district-related matter. Did you talk about how you got involved in this work at all?
Well, I'm a substance abuse counselor, so I worked in drug treatment for many years. And then I was employed in the district as the AODA coordinator for 13 years. So I was the only alcohol and drug coordinator in the district for 13 years. When that position ended, I kind of got burned out on AODA and working with addicts and alcoholics. And so I took a 3-year break and I went to the Boys and Girls Club. And I was executive director for 3 years at the Boys and Girls Club. And school district always felt bad, you know, that I lost my position. And Yolanda just kept emailing me, what about this? What about this? We want you back, we want you back, we want you back. And then this position came open 10 years ago, and Yolanda sent me an email and said, what about this? I said, oh, that's perfect. That was perfect. This was the job I think I was made to do, honestly. And having a background in addiction also helps a lot. So it fell in my lap, and I'm so grateful. Yeah. So I have a social work license, so now I'm using my social work license. Second half of my career, so. Yeah.
You really, I had to hold back some tears there.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're an angel. We're so fortunate to have you and all your team of people. Yeah, right. That's this year, correct?
Yes.
Women of
Oh, yeah.
Distinction,
Yeah, May 8th.
YWCA.
Yep.
That's amazing. I knew that there was an award that your name was attached to, and as I was sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, now which award is that? So thank you for mentioning
Yeah.
it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're really proud of you.
Thank you.
But we're really lucky to have you.
And I'm lucky to be here.
How can we support you?
I think just inviting me to things like this to educate the community and people about, McKinney-Vento and homelessness and what we do for our kids. I think a lot of people don't know what I do, so they say, oh. And then when they do find out what I do, they're like, wow, you're like a superhero. And I'm like, well, I'm that behind-the-scenes superhero that kind of swooshes in and gets my stuff done and leaves really fast. So just supporting me,
Well, please stay in contact with us
I will.
as needs arise, and I feel like I'm getting feedback from this. I had the opportunity, I was invited to participate in that program in November. There was one held in Beloit and one at Craig.
Oh, the youth homelessness panel?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I was so grateful that I
Yeah.
was able to go and hear all of those young people speak about the things that they've experienced through homelessness. And then we were updating policies for, as we do, and there was a policy on homelessness. And I thought we really need to have a presentation so that we can understand more about the work being
Right.
done here. You have a standing invitation to come back. If there's updates you'd like us to
Okay.
have, please reach out, because this is, the work that you're doing is really important. And I am told often, I watch those meetings, people will tell me that there are people out in the community in the district that watch, and so, you're really helping a lot more people understand about the essential work that you and your team are doing every day. Thank
thank
you
you.
very much for taking the time to be here 2 times.
Yeah.
Since the first time was delayed because of a tornado.
Right.
Thank you for coming back.
Yes, thank you for having me. So I have to go bowling now. I'm on a bowling league and I gotta go home and
300.
change and go bowling.
Well, have fun. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, moving on with the agenda for tonight's meeting. Unless you want to just, no, you have to leave
I
soon.
have to
You
leave in a couple minutes.
So can we bump up to the policies real quick? Are we able to do that? Can we go out of order and do that to vote, or are we fine?
I think we're fine. We've
Okay,
got a
because
quorum.
you didn't have any concerns
No,
with
I
it.
didn't.
Okay.
I went through them all and
Okay.
I was fine, so.
Okay, all right,
And
so,
they just move on to the full board.
okay, sounds good. All right, sounds good. All right, thanks for being here, and thanks for tag teaming me, Kathy. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we are now going to move on to the presentation of AmeriCorps reading program. Dr. Allison DeGraff, thank you.
Okay. All right, yes, well, it's difficult to follow Carrie with such a great presentation and information that she shared with us. It's great to have her in our district. But good afternoon. So I'm here today to give you an update on the Wisconsin Reading Corps that we have implemented into our elementary schools, and we're in the second year. And so today, as I share with you a little bit about the Wisconsin Reading Corps, I want to share with you a little bit about kind of reviewing just what is the Wisconsin Reading Corps, why are we working with Wisconsin Reading Corps to provide intervention to our students in the school, what schools are receiving it, and how that support and reading intervention aligns with our goals, and then some of our next steps. So again, AmeriCorps is a network of local, state, and national service programs that connect over 70,000 Americans each year with intensive services to meet community needs, and specifically in our situation to meet those community needs in education. And so it's been an exciting collaboration and connection with AmeriCorps to help provide intervention services to our students. So AmeriCorps members provide K-3 students with supplemental reading intervention so that they can be successful readers, and they provide evidence-based one-on-one tutoring to our programs, and so trying to intervene with our students that are at risk in reading so that we can make sure that they are reading proficiently by the end of third grade. And so this Reading Core program aligns with our district goals to continue to increase the number of students reading proficiently by third grade. It also aligns with Act 20 and the science of reading, and ensuring that our students are receiving evidence-based instruction in reading on phonics and phonemic awareness. And each of the Reading Core volunteers has intensive training and follows a very scripted program when they are tutoring our students one-on-one. So which schools are involved in the Reading Core this year? So we have 9 elementary schools that have 2 Reading Core volunteers at each elementary school. So our hope is to add Kennedy, Monroe, and Harrison next year, so that we'll have all 12 elementary schools that have 2 Reading Core volunteers in the building every day. So what is our Reading Core data telling us? So we have right now in those 9 elementary schools, 414 students receiving reading intervention one-on-one, 3 to 5 times a week for 20 minutes. They average 68 minutes a week of tutoring one-on-one, and 65% of those students have already exceeded their target growth through the Reading Core program. And then each student has averaged 52 sessions this year for receiving one-on-one tutoring. And so the data that we have is telling us that our students that are in Reading Core, you can see in the dark blue tells us that the exit criteria that they have to meet the target skills that they're working on, that specifically in kindergarten we have the most students already exceeding their target. And so each Reading Core volunteer sees about 10 to 15 students a day one-on-one. And again, they're full or part-time, so typically they're in the building from 8:30 to 2:30. And we do not pay for the Reading Core volunteers. They're paid a living wage from Reading Core. What we pay for as a district is we have an internal facilitator or coach that supports the Reading Core volunteers, so meets with them weekly or bi-weekly and looks at the student data and how they're progressing, helps identify the students through our assessments, and also helps coordinate all of the tutoring sessions. So it's very difficult to schedule that many students with the Reading Core volunteers. And recently I was talking to our principal at Washington, and he has 2 Reading Core volunteers this year. And last year they had 1 volunteer that ended up not being able to commit the full year, and so they had some challenges. But he was saying that he's so excited because these 2 volunteers have been a great fit in the building. There's so many students that are exceeding their target because of the quality of these trained volunteers, and that the teachers are so excited because they're seeing them transfer the information into the classroom. And so they're seeing these students that were struggling to start to read in 1st and 2nd grade. And so, I think that's the most important thing. We can do an intervention, but if the kids can't transfer it into the classroom, then it's an isolated intervention. And so it's exciting to hear that we're seeing our students transfer that learning. So those Reading Core volunteers that meet with our students, so who are the students receiving intervention? So at the beginning of every school year, We do initial literacy screening, so they'll screen them on phonics and phonemic awareness skills, oral reading, fluency, high-frequency words. So based on that screening and those, in our reading star assessment, we'll determine kids that are below the 25th percentile. And we usually call those our tier 2 students, and students at the 10th percentile and below would be our tier 3. Really, our tier 3 students continue to work mainly with our reading specialist and Title I teachers. And then that tier 2 is really who we have the reading corps volunteers work with in that second tier. They don't work with every student in that tier 2, but those are the students that they target as well. So as we look at what are those next steps for Reading Corps, so again, our goal is to have all 12 elementary schools receive the Reading Corps next year. And so I've been working with the Reading Corps. We met last week. One of the challenges is they didn't receive as much state funding as they have in the past. So their concern is that they can't service the last 3 schools. So I'm trying to work with them a little bit to say, well, could we supplement a little bit, you know, in order for that to happen? Or do we need to look at, of the 3 schools, what's the highest need with the school with the highest need? So some discussions around that, because we have been funding it through ESSER. And again, we don't pay the volunteers. We pay that person that is internally kind of responsible for coordinating all the tutoring and the data and supporting the volunteers. And so for me, that's a very low cost to pay a stipend to an internal coordinator with a really high impact. There's, you know, it's really the total cost for all 12 schools for that internal coach is $24,000. So you can't hire one person, even part-time in a building, to get that much intensive one-on-one reading instruction. So, you know, working to hope that we can continue to move the program forward in all of our schools. And then we continue to monitor, again, the students. How are they doing in the classroom on their assessments, but also monitoring their STAR data too, how, you know, to see, again, how well the Reading Corps intervention program is impacting their growth in reading as well as their proficiency, and are they moving closer to grade level? And then again, overall, the program has worked really well. The internal coaches have really helped to make the program run smoothly, and the coordination with all of the daily tutoring that happens. And, you know, but you always have challenges, and sometimes those challenges have been finding the tutor that's a right fit for the building. So we have had to change some of those tutors, but Reading Corps has been very supportive, you know, when we need to make a change with that as well. And then also when you're pulling kids every day, it's difficult to find when's the right time to pull that student so they're not missing something else that's important. And we have an intervention time, we just can't pull every student during that time. So those are just the challenges that we continue to work through, because there's not a perfect program for everything. So I just want to be transparent about that as well. But everybody's been really great in working through the challenges. And so, again, I hope that we can continue this program next year and that we can really add on those additional 3 schools or for sure at least 1 more. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. So I see, is the Reading Corps a subsidiary of AmeriCorps?
Yes.
So how does AmeriCorps get their funding? Do you know?
I think some of it is they do a lot of grant funding through and supplemented through state funding as well, so, yeah.
It's federal funding.
Federal, yes, some of the state and federal funding, so. But they also, yes, use grants as well too, so.
This is great. It's exciting to see, you know, when we were first talking about bringing it in, and then the first 4 schools, right, that had it. And then last year we had a principal come in and talk with it. Was that just last year?
Just last year.
So this is really exciting to see the development, and of course, there's gonna be there's challenges with everything, and you grow because you work through challenges, so this is no different. When you talk about the tier 2 people, students, those are students who maybe aren't as low, so they're not receiving those really intensive supports from the reading specialists, but weren't otherwise receiving support and were falling through the cracks because there wasn't the one-on-one help. And so this program is so valuable for those kids. It's really interesting to see. And I remember you talking before about how some of the students have even been able to graduate out. Is that
Yes.
accurate? And so then a wider percent of children have been able to be brought in who maybe wouldn't have received that support at all.
Yes, so we've been able to see that again this year, where some students, once they've exceeded their target growth and goals, have been able to go back into the classroom, and we've been able to bring on another student,
Wow.
so.
That's fantastic. This is a great program. Thank you for the work that you have invested over the last couple of years to get this here and get it launched. And I'm glad that our schools have been able to receive these. I do tutoring, different kind of tutoring, and work with students at another elementary school. And I feel like sometimes my path has crossed with those. I don't necessarily know who they are, what they're doing, but it's like, oh, well, I work with this lady at this time, and I see you at this time. So I personally see the challenges of when to schedule, because I know for my class, if I get back with my students after about 11:05, they're getting ready for lunch, so we have to stay really scheduled. And they have some tight schedules, those teachers do. So
For sure.
thank you. This is wonderful. Always keep us updated.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, moving on. Overview of employee benefits. Scott Garner and Jamie Brown. We're ready for you.
Good evening. Excited to be here. This is my first time addressing the board, so looking forward to working with you. Today, I'm just going to provide an overview of insurance negotiations and budget assumptions that we had for the 24-25 school year. So last year during negotiations, the district did face large increases. And from there, with those increases, we had implemented a plan design change. What we did is we added after the after the deductible, the co-insurance was added, okay? When we started planning for the 24-25 school year, our initial assumption was a 10% overall increase. Renewals started coming in, and working with Dan, Scott, and Mark, we have adjusted that amount to approximately a 12% assumption. The reason for these year-over-year high increases is one of two reasons. The first is our medical loss ratio, or our MLR. And what that does is that compares what we pay in premium to the carriers and what the carrier is paying out in care for our employees and their families, okay? At the end of the 23 calendar year, Mercy was at 127%, and Dean came in at 147%. Our goal is to remain at 100% or below, okay? In addition to that, you may recall historically there was some rate caps. Mercy would normally have 9% rate cap, and Dean would have a 13%. Those are no longer offered in our renewals, as they're trying to, bridge that gap from our MLR. We are continuing to work with our brokers. We are exploring every option. We are meeting on a regular basis. We are looking to find what is the best option for the district financially, as well as our employees. And our goal is at the May 14th board meeting is to bring you our renewal. And as information comes in and is ready to be sent out, we will also keep you updated on that as well. Thank you.
So, if it's possible, could you share with the board or me what our current practice is, what our current co-pays are, what's our current HSA contribution, what are our deductibles? Just kind of a summary that shows us the Dean and Mercy, because we pay the lower,
Yep,
right?
we
What
pay,
those premium shares are, just so we know what we're gonna ask, so we have something to look at.
Absolutely.
Change. So this is a little unusual from what we've done in the past. Usually we have all this information early, because open enrollment is May, right?
yeah,
So this is a little different, this is quite different than what I'm accustomed to having before me. So the sooner you can get that to us, the better, because this is a specific item that needs board approval, health insurance changes, is that correct? I mean, that's what we've done
in the past.
unless we're doing something different. Okay.
Yeah, we're in April 1, and we'll provide another update. I think the PPC meeting is May
For
6th. So we'll have information that we would share with the PPC committee on May 6th, assuming that when we meet next Monday to do the meeting. And then that will be where you're gonna get a lot more, the PPC committee will get a lot more detailed information. And then the board meeting is the May 14, does that sound right?
Yes.
May 14.
I guess the change is when,
I'm sorry, what was
I
that?
guess the change was to the PPC is all, we used to have a standing committee, benefits.
Yes,
So I guess that kind of motivated the change, because now all of a sudden PPC does benefits too. And, okay. But this is a big deal,
this is a big deal.
because
Yes.
10% normally is at least $1 million,
Yes,
About 12%.
right?
yes, and now we are up to 12, yes.
So how do we manage that is the big question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
James like, well, I'm out of here. Go on, just any other questions or?
No, it's complicated stuff, so thanks for letting us know that we're probably gonna be seeing this 12% overall, because I think it's important to go into those meetings not being really shocked, cause they're huge numbers, and every year, it's such a big number, every year.
I just wanna piggyback off of what Kevin says, as I get older, my mind is a little bit, I need to refreshing a little bit more. But I remember a packet, and I just don't remember when that presentation packet came to us, cause I'm envisioning like a grid. Do you remember that? Like, that showed the comparisons? Do you know what point in time we received that as a board so that we could review it? Because I think that's what you're referencing. I remember a presentation, I remember the broker coming, giving us some alternative design plans, considerations. Are we
Yes.
gonna see that?
What you're going to see is more of the finished product this year. We've been meeting with the brokers. We met with them last week. We asked them to go back and work with our vendors, Dean and Mercy, to work on what they can create in terms of a plan design. And once we get more information back from their work, then we'll present that as we can. We want to make sure we present you with accurate, current, updated information. So they're going back to do some work. We meet with them on a weekly basis to give us updates. And Mark, Dan, and I, and Jamie met with them, what was that, Thursday last week, and asked them to go back and do some more talking, negotiating.
Because if I remember correctly, one of the plan design changes, was it last year? Was that Family Advantage? Or the year before, because you saw increases last year, right? Sorry, again, getting old, 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
are there any major design plan changes like that coming forth?
Well, we're gonna continue the family advantage as far as we know right now. What's major to one person isn't to another, so we hate to comment on what that might look like right now. We just wanna hear back from what they've done with the vendors and what they can provide for us. Before we overshare, we don't wanna overshare and then have it change.
Maybe if I could add, could you share the federal expectations that we have in regards to our deductible? That would be a good overview.
Sorry. Our plan is a high deductible health plan. And so what that means is it has to be a certain amount. Right now, it's 1,500, okay? And it has increased to 1,600 effective 2024. So we will see at least a slight increase because we do have to meet that guideline for our plan to be considered a high deductible health plan. So, you know, regardless, our deductible will at least be 1,600 for a single plan and 32 for a family because we have to stay within those guidelines.
Our constant focus is to remain competitive so that we can, obviously, we want to recruit who we can and retain who we can. So our goal is to remain competitive, but also fiscally responsible with what we're given the different factors that affect the premium rates.
That's a really great point. I always think it's super helpful for the board to see, at least as much as you know through the brokers or what you're seeing out there, the comparables at our surrounding districts. That's just really helpful, especially if our employees have concerns, then we have solid details where we can say, well, we see the trends, we know what trends are happening in what these surrounding districts, and then maybe we can report we are offering better, or it just helps our decision making. Thank you. And then I like the grids. While I might remember, well, we saw this last year, I don't remember some of those other things. So I always think the charts, the more we can see, we're not all experts in this. I mean, I know I certainly am not. So that really does help. It does.
Thank you. I think sometimes too, again, my memory is like, I remember we did it at the full board. And then maybe we came back a second time at the full board because the first time, but then I was, well, did we do that at a PPC? So I'll have to do some
I don't think so. I think it was to the full board twice.
twice.
I don't think it came actually to this committee.
Was there closed session as well?
Boy, I was trying to remember that too.
There could have been.
So just a couple of things, just to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Jamie. The reason we sent it back ultimately is because it cost too much. They gave us a whole bunch of options and it wasn't, so then we had to think about, how much does our employees pay versus how much does the district pay, and do you increase deductibles? So we had to give them a second order of running, much like the board did, so that we could potentially look at other mechanisms. And I think we call those levers to pull. If you pull this lever, maybe this happens, and if you pull that lever, what will that happen? And so we needed them to do that because what they had was well over 12%, and we needed to figure out what that looked like. So, and what is probably two things that we'll continue to model is, one is the federal expectation for high deductible plans is not ever gonna go less. It's gonna continue to go up. So even though we're at 1,600, I don't know, there's a prediction of what it will happen for 25, 26. That number continues to elevate, so we have to follow that. And then the second piece would be, we also know likely how much we're going to give our employees based on the qualified economic offer. And so we have to balance that. We can't say, well, you get, 4% raise for your compensation, but your health insurance is gonna cost 10% more. And then therefore, you're breaking even, right? You have to balance that, but that's the stuff that Jamie and her team and Scott are doing on a regular basis, so.
Thank you. You did a Great.
Great job.
Welcome, welcome to board presentations, yay! All right, everyone, moving on, review Neola policy. So there are a lot here. Do I don't need to read all of this whole thing, right?
You just have to ask if there's any
Okay.
pulled out or questions on it.
Do we,
I have some questions.
yeah,
Thank
Kevin.
you. Let's start with investigations involving suspected child abuse. All right, where is that one? Oh, come on. There it is. Okay, the investigations involving suspected child abuse, it's one short page, right? 5540.01. The third paragraph, if I read this a few times, it's my understanding that if there's a investigation for child abuse and those professional that are investigating it tell us that we don't want to inform the parents right now because it might involve the parents, right? So we don't want to call the parents to skew that investigation. But however, that very first sentence, it says the school administration may notify the student's parents after being advised by the agency conducting the investigation that parent contact will not impede their investigation. So it's just that word may. I'm assuming that we would tell the parent if they're not involved. You know what I mean? Should the word be may, or we will call the parent immediately knowing that they're not involved? You
So-
understand the difference I'm trying to?
Yep, so it says may because either like a detective from the Bureau and or Child Protective Services are gonna dictate to the school whether or not they should make contact or what their next step is. Most of the time, they're going to say, you do not need to follow up, we are now going to this home or this person and we'll make that, connection with them regarding what has occurred. But they may direct you or say, if the parent asks if their child were interviewed, you may release that information. So really, we're taking the directive from them. I think it's a protection so that parents, cannot come back and say, you have to or you shouldn't. But we may be directed to give that communication.
I guess I was looking at it as if my child reported child abuse. And for the initial investigation, it was determined that the parents were not involved in this. Why wouldn't I know that right away? Why wouldn't the district call me and say, hey, your child just reported abuse? Instead of saying, well, the district may or may not, if they don't want to.
Right.
You know what I'm getting at is, why wouldn't we tell the parent, if they aren't involved, that your child or your daughter or son reported an abuse?
Yeah, I think, example I would give you real quickly would
Yeah.
be what we just heard about McKinney-Vento. And so you may be living in a family that the parents aren't the only adults. And so if in fact you're telling the parents, then they're telling potentially or reacting, responding to the other adults in the family. I mean, can you picture how that could potentially play out? So again, we are never trying to withhold information, but in those cases, we're following the direction of Protective Services or Police Department. And that's where it gets a little like,
But the policy says the school district administration may notify the student's parents after being told that the parents aren't involved. So why isn't it shall? We will tell the parents.
because the
Okay.
protective agencies may choose to do it either. It's not both, right? So if the police department tells them, then we may not need to follow up with the phone call. The police department or protecting agency is saying, we've done the investigation. So in that case, the school district does not have to call also.
Okay.
I'm wondering if the wording would be, and the school district may or another agency. So I'm wondering if adding in additional wording to indicate that it might be the school district or a different authoritative agency overseeing this investigation.
I don't know that we can put parameters on what other agencies will or won't do as part of our policy.
Okay, I just wanna. Oh,
I will say that Child Protective Services, in conjunction with the Department of Children and Families, is renewing how they take an intake call. And a lot of times when a report is being made, Child Protective Services is asking whether or not you have made contact with the family about what the student is saying and whether or not you feel comfortable doing that. And in some cases, they do, and in some cases, they don't. For fear that it may get worse, it may continue, the student then may not tell anyone, and what the repercussions could be.
alternative expulsion hearing procedure, 5610.101. Must be the other one. Well, anyway, I don't know if that was the 50, I don't know if it was the PO or the AG directly relating to alternative expulsion hearing procedure. It talks about after school. Oh, God darn it. Do we have after school, in-school suspension? It says if the board could fund it or finance it in here somewhere. God darn it.
Kevin, are you thinking about the administrative guideline?
It might be.
Okay, so that would be 5610. It talks about alternative expulsion procedures. I'm not sure what your question is. but-
No. God darn it. It must have
I remember an after-school thing, Kevin.
must be in-school discipline.
Yeah,
That
I
one.
think that's what it is. It's not
Yeah.
related to expulsion.
No, you're right. It's the, why is this not? Yeah, you're right. Thank you. It's the school discipline one. Yeah, I'll just read it. It's only 3 small paragraphs. In school discipline, it is the purpose of this policy to provide an alternative to out-of-school suspension. The ability of in-school discipline options is dependent upon the financial ability of the Board of Education to support such a program. Do we have this program now?
Yes, we do. So the in-school suspension supervision is part of the minutes that come to the board regarding, what will be approved based upon how many students are enrolled. So it's part of that support staff, minute allocation to each building. So all of the secondary schools have enough minutes that they can allocate that to in-school suspension supervision and programming.
But we don't have after-school, in-school suspension,
No, we do not have after-school, in-school suspension.
because it's a little confusing to me, that last paragraph, no student is to be detained after this close of regular school day unless the student's parent has been contacted, and on and on.
So
we
that's
don't
for
even-
a teacher to hold a student after school hours for a detention. They have to give the parent, especially our elementary students, advance notice that they're going to keep them.
So we currently have after-school
A
suspension.
teacher can keep a student after school, yes. They have to make contact with the parent ahead of time to let them know where the child's going to be, so they're not wondering why my child hasn't come out of the building, or why aren't they home yet. But teachers have the right to have them for after-school detention, yes.
Okay. Thank you, and then just the expulsion hearing procedure, you know, a couple of years ago or whatever, had some clarification on when expulsions are brought to us, what authority do we have, but it was made quite clear in that policy, if you noticed that. We can confirm, deny, modify. Okay, thank you, that's it, thanks.
Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposition. That passes to full board for approval. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the questions, Kevin. I appreciate it. It's a lot of work to the team. I always like to give credit to go through these, and it's not fun to read them either. And you really have to look at every single line, because these are important decisions that our district, you know, how we do the work we do. So we need to carefully pay attention to them. So thank you very much. Okay, any announcements, updates? Our next planning meeting will be this coming Monday, so in a week. If there's anything that you need to let us know before that meeting, please let us know. And we have been planning out agendas. We have information for May. We have things for June. I don't think we've done July. I think we've kind of taken, because that falls around the 4th of July too. So just so everyone knows that for school, there's things that are just kind of nicely scheduled. So that's helpful. Thank you for your time. Glad there wasn't a tornado today.
Next meeting.
Yeah. The next meeting is May, what did we say it was?
Set it up, 6.
6th, May 6th, in this beautifully newly updated boardroom. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Carpeting.